Okay, and we're back after yesterday's interruption. Just trying to do what we did with the delay video series, but with a collection of my Reverb plugins, just to reacquaint ourselves with, I guess, the uses and the controls that you find within your typical Reverb VST plugin. So far I've set up 4 reverbs, those being the Valhalla vintage verb, the guitar rig, I can't remember, I haven't even set it up yet. Oh god, now we've got to go through that. The D16 Tour Reverb, 2C Audio's Aether, and 2 that I remember that I have that I didn't put in play were the complete Native Instruments complete plugins, the RC24 and RC48, which are a bit like the Valhalla vintage verb, and basically I think lexicon emulations. So there's a fair bit going on here. So yeah, in yesterday's video, I think we basically we've got a kick and a snare, and first trick off the rank was the gated reverb trick, where we send a percussive element into a reverb, which then has a compressor optionally or a limiter, and then a noise gate which is triggered by the dry signal, and we controlled the attack and decay via that gate plugin, and you create that sort of 80s gated reverb sound. And also just chucked an LFO tool on there just to create just to add, I guess, a bit of interest by stuffing around with the panning using a sine or any kind of LFO. So we might just pick up where we left off, and we've got the vintage verb and oh good. Now I think today we just want to quickly focus on the vintage verb controls. So I like this one because it's pretty simple and it sounds pretty good. So here we've got the mix, the wet dry, 100%, nothing unusual there. The pre-delay, which is effectively, I guess, can sort of create the distance. So the shorter the pre-delay, I'm not sure if it's the further away things will appear or the closer. Yeah, so the shorter the pre-delay, so the shorter the pre-delay, I think it's the further away things will appear. Because I guess you've got the dry and the reverb sound sort of coming to you at the same time. So then we have this damping. So I guess this is basically like a sort of a crossover control, and let's have a look. So what it's a high frequency controls the decay of high frequency. So okay. Okay. So what do we got here? So the high shelf controls the steepness of the high frequency damping filter in the reverb. Okay, Let's have a look. So if we bypass the high frequency, and we'll set that to something pretty low. So the high shelf, I guess we seem to be cutting a lot of the low frequencies there. Okay, and then we've got this bass frequency, bass multi. So I think this basically controls the duration of the reverb for frequency above and below this bass frequency. So if we have this at, I don't know, 2000 hertz, and we make it 4 times, it basically means that I think the decay of everything below that frequency will be 4 times longer than everything above it. So let's see if that holds true. Yeah, I think that's about right. So the size, I guess the smaller the size, I guess the harsher the reverb is going to sound. Yeah, so you get that ringing, sort of clean filtering sound. And I guess we can control okay, and so then we've got, I guess, a diffusion control for the early and late reflections. So initial echo density. So let's we set both of these to 0, see what happens. And then you've got the modulation effects, which is basically, I guess, a chorusing effect where they're modulating the delay times of all the different reflections. So if we increase that to 10 hertz, that's quite high. Increase it. If we bring this down. And then the EQ. Now, where's this? Is this? I'm just wondering if this is a post EQ, a post reverb EQ. So I'm assuming it is. So we're going to cut all the high frequency, anything above. So it's a bit darker. Low cut and cut everything below. Get a really thin reverb if you've got. It's pretty cool. Okay, so what are the other controls here? So this reverb effectively has just a whole bunch of, I guess you'd have to describe these as basically just algorithms. And I think this plugin's been around for a while, so I must have just got the latest version, and there's a lot more modes on here that I remember seeing the last time I used it. But effectively what you've got room reverb, plate reverbs, and then a few other interesting spaces like chamber, random space. So I guess some creative modes there. We'll play around with those, and then there's also this color control, which effectively I guess tries to emulate sort of vintage hardware by applying some downsampling. which is interesting. So we're on the 70s at the moment. We'll just play around with that, I think, just to see what we can notice. So we've got quite a long reverb there. It's a bit brighter. You can hardly hear the difference. So maybe what we'll do is just play around with the algorithm or the modes. Go for a pull. That's pretty luscious. Pretty washy. I like it. Oh, that's pretty cool. See what just bring this up here. Anyway, I'm sort of getting sucked into playing around with this. We've got a limiter here, which isn't really. I guess if you do sort of limit that signal, I guess it has the impact of sort of taking away a lot of that decay. I don't know if I like this limiter though. Might be better. We'll put that back. Alright, so we'll get that limiter. Max limit. Anyway, that's been a bit of fun. Valhalla Vintage Verb, I think we got the idea. We can maybe just flick through some more of these algorithms. Take oh. Yeah, so these. Alright, so that's pretty interesting. So we might just put a fork in that one, and we're going to move on now to the RC48, which is probably going to have a lot in common with the Vintage Verb. Again, we've got the pre-delay, the shape. So I guess a low pre-delay gives the impression of I guess gives you a bit more distance. Or creates more depth. This the signal shape. I guess that's sort of like a diffusion control. If you've got a small number of flat surfaces versus a large number of surfaces where the signal's reflecting, you'll get, I guess, more density in the signal size. So if we reduce this, now you get a good there's a good user interface on this one where you can sort of visualize the changes that you're making. So here we've got a so this is very similar actually to the Valhalla, and you can see the controls here. So we've got the pre-delay, and the damping is an interesting way. So here we've got the high frequency, so the high shelf, which is effectively would be this control here, and the bass in the mid. And here they use this ratio control, whereas here, I guess it's a ratio that you actually can control the length of the reverb. So here, I guess you control the frequency, which you can do here as well. And then so you can control the reverb time for frequencies above and below this crossover frequency. So if we keep going, and if we make the bass frequency delay it longer relative to the it's full range. So it's interesting. This pre-echoes control. What does this do? Spectrum options. Pre-echoes. Left, right. What does that mean? Maybe we'll go to a preset and see if we can see what. Grainy echoes, okay. What is this actually controlling? It's just like a multi-tap. So I wonder if we can reduce the time of the delay. So what we're hearing there is it's got these two settings. There's a reverb and a delay. What does that mean? obviously the diffusion, I guess, gives you that smoother delay effect. The spread, I guess it's pretty focused sound. Assume that's giving us a bit more stereo. And then this reverb dampening control here. What does that mean? Reverb dampening. Shit. I need to RTFM, I think. I guess where it's useful is you can just get a guide. Or just go preset shopping. It's interesting the impact this reverb versus effect, because they sound similar, but it sounds like the effect introduces, I guess, some of these taps here. These seem to be pre-echoes. So how many of these have we got? There's a lot. Okay. So what is that? So it's almost like there's 3 pairs. And you can move them all together or individually. So it's interesting. So we can play around with that. It sounds pretty good. So if we compare, it sounds pretty good with the whole. This doesn't give you the same number of modes. It seems to be exclusively a hall, a digital hall reverb. The random hall sort of gets a bit of ringiness in there. Classic spaces. Yeah, so this is basically, I guess, 4 taps. Left, right, and then left and right again. So I guess you have up to 3 pairs. Now, how do you create these pairs? Don't know. Can't double click. Not at all clear. Options. Okay, so we can see this dampening effect. You can see the impact in the visualization. Up there you can see the slope of this coloured area will increase and shorten as we reduce this. And then you can see, so increasing the decay. You can get, there's an infinite setting there. Okay, right, that's interesting. Let's move on to the next. We'll try the RC24, which is I think an even older school version, emulation of a Lexicon Reverb. Very similar GUI. We're set to wet. It has a room, small hall and large modes. Pre-delay. It doesn't give us these echo options. Seems to be a fair bit similar. I like the sound of it. And not surprisingly, I probably like the simplicity of it as well. So we've got dark and bright modes. There you go. So it's got a lot more. Oh, that's pretty simple, but good. Now we're going to look at this guitar rig one. And what have we got? Effects, reverb. It is called Reflector. This is a convolution reverb, which means it's got some impulse responses, but it's got some interesting controls, including a reverse control. So we need to set the wet. Okay, so we can navigate folders here and presets up and down here. What happens if we hit this reverse button? Ah, that's cool. Okay, so let's bring the kick back. That is cool. Reverse position. So let's see. So I think I'll probably just use this just for this reverse effect, and you probably just want to get the timing happening so that you can almost get the kick to in fact we could do that. We'll send us put a we'll put a compressor on top of this reverb, and we'll send the sidechain from the kick to that. Sidechain on this thing. Sidechain, so. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's just I think maybe a medium hole. Oh wow, it's just got a sync button there. This is fantastic. You get a really cool, I guess, kind of textured sound there. So we've got, I guess what this would be, low envelope, high envelope. So I guess that's controlling the decay. So what is this then? This is okay. So low envelope frequency. So this would, I'm gonna have a guess. Really cool sucking sound here. So what do we want? Small studios. This is like a filter of some sort, so this controls the frequency of like a, I guess it's like a notch filter with a resonance control. This is a really good, I think obviously going to be a really good reverb just to sort of play around to get, just to add some groove to your, to just anything. Especially then with that reverse setting and also controlling the envelope, syncing the envelope or the decay of the reverb to the BPM of the track, assuming that's what it does. That's really cool. Anyway, that's 36 minutes, and I guess I've done something. I'll save this project, and if you've got any of these plugins, I guess you can just save it, or you can just download it from the link in the YouTube. All right. Good night.